Hi, I'm Shafinder Zain. Welcome to the Psychology of Attraction, Part 2. Today's topic is called Rise of the Super Intelligent. Before we start, let's do a little recap on what we learned so far. And if you haven't watched the first part yet, the link is right on the top. Go and watch it now. On Part 1, Seduction and Evolution, we learned that the theory of evolution has two parts, natural selection and sexual selection. Well, we're going to learn about a third part that kind of I invented, but that's for later. So right now we have two parts, natural selection and sexual selection. Natural selection is the process through which an animal or organism adapts to the changing circumstances around it, like the changing weather, availability of food, presence of parasites, germs, predators, etc. If it's successfully able to adapt, which is to say that its cells mutate in a way that allows the animal to survive or even thrive in that environment, we can say the animal has evolved. If it survives and if it gets to mate, its genes gets passed on and its offspring are born with better adapted genes to survive within that environment. An example of natural selection would be, let's say, a tiger with short fur that adapts to a global climate change and develops long fur to survive in very cold weathers. Or let's say if one meat-eating species of monkeys turns vegetarian as a result of absence of available prey. If, on the other hand, it is not able to adapt, it is weeded out of the gene pool through death, and only the fittest survive. In a nutshell, that is natural selection. The second part of the evolution theory, which is what we are concerned with in this course, is sexual selection. Whereas natural selection is blind, usually very slow, because it is a response to changing environments, which usually change over very long periods of time. Sexual selection, on the other hand, is very fast, intelligent, and unpredictable. It is the process of choosing a mate because he or she displays certain traits that indicate better quality genes. The reason sexual selection is way more powerful than natural selection is because no matter how fit or strong an individual is, unless he is able to successfully convince someone to mate with him, his superior genes will die with him and evolution will not happen. As Jeffrey Miller writes in his fantastic book, The Mating Mind, reproductive success is evolution's bottom line. Reproductive success is evolution's bottom line. Think about it. Even if you personally evolve powers like Superman, unless you can leave back children who inherit your genes, it matters very little for evolution. In other words, unless you can reproduce and also your children can reproduce, you're as good as non-existent from an evolutionary perspective. Now here is where it gets interesting. Sexual selection is mostly controlled and driven by the females of the species. Because of this, the males begin to develop all sorts of interesting adaptations which eventually change the destiny of an entire species, often extremely fast. Allow me to explain. In its most basic form, the psychology of sexual selection is this. Reproduction is evolution's bottom line. Males and females both need to mate, but how they want to mate is very different. For males of the most species, the best way to increase his reproductive success is by mating as often as possible with as many females as possible. This is true because typically males have to contribute nothing more than a bit of sperm and few minutes of energy. The reason he wants to mate as often as possible with a variety of females is because pregnancy is always complicated. Many females die, and even if the offspring are born, many of them die too for many natural causes. So the best strategy for the males is to keep mating as much as possible. The females, on the other hand, employ a very different strategy. The best way to increase her reproductive success is to choose males with the highest quality genes. This ensures the survival rate of her offspring would be much higher than if she chose a random male to mate with. But this creates a problem. The females only want their highest quality genes from the fittest of the males. Yet, as you can imagine, choosing the fittest males is not always that easy. The only way to tell for sure the quality of genes of a given male is by doing a thorough DNA mapping and comparing it to some optimum model. Since no species on this planet have ready access to that sort of technology, they have to depend on something else. And that something else is the male's ability to display traits that signify higher quality genes and better fitness. I'll say it one more time. That something else that females depend on to make mate choice is the male's ability to display traits that signify higher quality genes and better fitness. Now this is where it gets fun. Since females choose their mates depending on the male's advertisement of higher quality genes, males compete with each other to out-adapt, out-evolve each other on the race to display those advertisements. I'll say it again. Since females make their choice depending on the male advertisement of fitness and higher quality genes, the males compete with each other trying to out-adapt and out-evolve on the race to develop those advertisements. One of the most dramatic examples of this is the peacock's tail. So why should the peahen prefer peacocks with the largest, most colorful tail with the most complex and symmetric patterns? Does it have a sense of beauty about peacock's tail art? Far from it. The peacock's tail delivers two critical advertising messages. First, since the tail is so huge and difficult to maintain, only the fittest of the peacocks will be able to survive with it. A peacock with a lower level fitness or an unhealthy peacock with lower survival skills would have been killed by now by the predators. The fact that he is here advertising his massive tail in all its glory automatically signifies that this is a very fit and survivor peacock. Just the type the peahen is looking for. This is called handicap theory. The fact a male is able to carry or own such a handicap is an advertisement of its fitness. The second thing the peacock's tail signifies is that the complex, colorful patterns on the peacock's tail is a sign that a huge chain of healthy genes are at work in the background. For something as complex as a peacock's tail to be in full growth, there has to be many healthy genes working internally. The peahen is not a connoisseur of beautiful peacock art, but it is genetically programmed to feel attracted towards those males who display the biggest, most colorful, the most complex of the tails. Sexual selection is so powerful because the males with the best tails get to mate with the most females. As a result of that mating, on the following generation, the competition gets even more intense as there are even more males with better tails than not. As usual, along the way, peacocks with smaller or less colorful tails only mate with the unhealthy females or not at all, and in that process slowly get weeded out of the gene pool. Now, to understand how sexual selection plays out on the human race, imagine this. Imagine about 100,000 years ago, some of our ancestors living in the African savanna began to produce sounds that meant something. Let's imagine in the beginning it was just simple words that communicated availability of food, or yum, or a mammoth is coming to turn us into mashed human beings. Something like that. Simple as it may be, those who could produce those words had a distinct survival advantage over those who could not. Let's imagine these guys got to mate it just a little bit more because the females took fancy over them. Fast forward 1,000 years or even 5,000 years, now we have somewhat better brain capacity to produce a bit more advanced sounds. Now these guys can talk about food, predators, weather, enemy clans, and maybe even some basic romantic words that convey sexual interest in a way that the females preferred it. So what did the females prefer? Well, they preferred males who were not just good in survival skills, but also of a nicer disposition, which lowered the chance of rape or forced ownership. And how did they know which ones to choose or avoid? For the first time in the planet's history, they could tell by having a conversation. Again, the ones who could speak nicely and say the right things that signified his survival abilities as well as a sunnier personality got chosen more often over the guy who could only snort and grunt and showed no sensitivity towards her preferences. Fast forward another 10,000 years, now all our ancestors can speak. They even create military strategies against other enemy clans. They have larger and more complex brains. And guess what? To advertise their gentler side and also superior brain functioning, some of them began to draw or even create music. Remember Peacock's tail and its complex patterns? The human males at this point who could produce music or draw nice pictures were automatically chosen more often by the females because such capabilities indicate much higher level of brain functioning than the average axe-wielding bison slayer. And guess which is the most complex organ of all that requires the most genes to be working optimally in the background? That's right, it's the human brain. Our brain is our peacock's tail. It is our advertisement to the potential mate of our higher quality genes that are working in the background. Let's fast forward another 80,000 years or so. We now find our ancestors living in agricultural societies on the verge of creating urban civilizations. Life is vastly different now from our African savanna days when we first learned to speak. Men and women both need to speak proper language, support agricultural activities, respect social values, and follow social leaders. These basic mental capacities are necessary to simply survive in this society and definitely to attract mates and reproduce. Life is changing extremely fast, and for the first time in the planet's history, a species is evolving not just in response to the changing environment ruled by nature, but changing circumstances ruled by humans themselves. Sexual selection for our species has worked in a very unusual way. As we develop more and more powerful brain capacity on our race to win better and better mates, we also began to design unusually complex ways of living. This created a third force of evolution that no other species on this planet ever faced directly. I call this third force technological selection. As a race, we invent different technologies and ways of living. And unless an individual can quickly adapt to that way of living or make use of that technology, they're forced to either die out or stay out of human societies. Imagine a boy born in Athens in the 6th century BC. Imagine due to some unfortunate genetic malfunction, this boy was born without the brain capacity to understand or use language. This boy will not die out due to environmental causes like weather or natural food availability, because the environment has nothing to do with language. But by all likelihood, this boy will probably die out of starvation or live an extremely poor quality life because he simply won't be able to operate or contribute in the vastly advanced Greek civilization without language. Now let us take an average normal man from the Greek civilization from the 6th century BC. And let's imagine he somehow time travels to the present day world. How do you think he will fare in our world of credit cards, cell phones, internet, automobiles, supermarkets, and a population of nearly 7 billion? Do you think he will be able to survive without help? What will he do? Can he get a job? Can he get a medical insurance? Can he convince someone to marry him? As you can imagine, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for him to survive in our world. He simply does not have the brain capacity necessary to make sense of this technological mayhem. You think I'm exaggerating? Well, remember how many people went jobless in the 90s just because they could not learn how to operate computers? Do you realize how many elderly people cannot even operate a cell phone? Those of us who can use these advancements of technology automatically assume everyone else has the brain capacity to learn it too. And if they're not learning it, it's probably because they're lazy. Unfortunately, that is not the case at all. Just like most teenagers simply don't have the brain capacity for long-term planning, not because they're lazy or dumb, but because the part of our brain that gives us the ability to do long-term planning does not fully mature until we are in our mid-20s. Now you know why many teenagers don't even think twice getting a tattoo on their face or drill a huge hole in their earlobes, simply because it's in at the moment. They're not dumb or lazy. They simply cannot see a future when it won't be in at the moment. All they have is the moment. In the same way, not everyone can handle all these different technologies that are constantly being created. Try learning internet marketing and you'll see what I mean. The amazing thing is, all these adaptations necessary to understand and use these technological innovations are not the luxury of a few who will come ahead on the sexual race. It is a necessity today for virtually everyone. No matter how fit and strong you may be physically, if you're not fast enough in adapting to the radically changing environments around you, you will be weeded out of the gene pool mercilessly, both through sexual selection and technological selection. For most of nature, evolution may be about survival of the fittest. For human beings, it is undoubtedly survival of the smartest. So, to get back to where we started, which is the psychology of attraction from an evolutionary point of view, let us see what then would be the most attractive quality to look for both men and women when they are seeking a potential mate. For both males and females, more so for females choosing the males, the most attractive quality to look for is evolutionary smartness. What is evolutionary smartness? It is the ability to constantly make sense, adapt, and lead in this overcrowded, fast-changing, super-technological world of over 6.8 billion people. Well, of course, that probably makes a little more sense than saying the answer to all of life is the number 42. I realize that. And that's exactly why I've created over 9 hours of intense coaching program that will not only guide you through all the components of evolutionary smartness, but also take you through the precise steps so you can immediately incorporate those traits within your personality with the help of professional hypnosis and brain entrainment technology. And also teach you how to quickly, effectively, and powerfully communicate those traits to your potential mates and help you become magnetically attractive. It's called 5 Essential Mindsets of Magnetically Attractive Men. If you wish to get this unique home study course, if you are ready for massive learning and change, click on the link right below this video and life will never be the same again. In the next part of this course, we will go through some of the more juicier stuff. Tomorrow, you will learn what creates attraction in romantic relationships, what destroys it, and how to maximize attraction in moments of intimacy. All of that and more coming to you in the next part of this course. By the way, if you're not signed up for this course yet, if you got here by a recommendation of a friend or somebody else, be sure to sign in with your name and email address on the right-hand side. Remember, this is a 4-part course, and the only way to get all 4 parts is by signing up here. A lot more to come, so come on, go ahead, sign up. Also, don't forget to leave your questions and comments on how you're enjoying this course so far. I read every single comment and try to answer as many as I can. So go ahead, let me know your questions, opinions, and ideas. Until we meet again, have fun and go make this world a little better today.